to another episode of Comic Fridays. We've been somewhat delayed with this episode, so we're packing it in on Monday, and we'll be back to our regular schedule this Friday. This week I want to start the first of a three-part series on drawing perspective. Perspective is something that does not come naturally to the vast majority of artists, and if you've ever looked at pre-Renaissance artwork, you'll quickly notice that everything looks wrong. The scales are way off, the proportions are wrong, and everything looks unrealistic. There's a reason for that. Perspective is a relatively modern invention in art. Unfortunately, it's also what makes art look real. Without perspective, you've got doodles. Sometimes these doodles are very nice, and I'll be the first to admit that many of my comics fall into the doodle category. But if you want your comic to shine, you need to learn to use perspective. Let's start with a simple one-point perspective. This is useful for drawing anything you look at from only one direction, such as directly against a wall that is running parallel to the horizon, or looking straight down a tunnel. You start by drawing a horizontal line across your comic panel to represent the horizon. A good rule of thumb is that the horizon should be along the outline of any characters you will have in the foreground. In the middle of the horizon, place a dot. This is your focal point where all the lines you draw to produce the perspective effect will come from. Let's say we're drawing a room in a house with one wall parallel to the horizon. You can draw the top and bottom line of your wall now, make them equidistant from the horizon, draw two more vertical lines in, equidistant from the focal point, to form the sides of the back wall. Now draw a diagonal line from each corner of the square you just made to each corner of your panel. You now have the basic shape of a room in a house. Let's add a window to the right-hand wall and a table along the left-hand wall to demonstrate perspective. Place your ruler on the page so that one end is touching the focal point. Rotate the ruler so it is bisecting the right-hand wall part of the way down. Draw a line from the focal point to the right-hand side of the frame using the ruler as a guide. Rotate the ruler down and draw another line. You now have the top and bottom of your window frame. Decide on the width of the window and draw a vertical line bisecting both the top and bottom window lines on the left and right-hand sides of the window. Now you have the outline for window frame. Repeat this process to draw another window frame outline inside the first one so you have both the inner and outer edges of the frame. Place the ruler against the focal point again and draw four lines in the bottom left of the frame to represent the four long edges of your tabletop. Draw three vertical lines bisecting the four lines you just drew to form the outline of the tabletop, and three horizontal lines that cut through the points where your diagonal and vertical lines cross one another. Now you have the top of your table. Draw four more diagonal lines from the focal point underneath the tabletop. These show where the legs of your table will reach down to. Draw three vertical lines from each corner of the table to the diagonal lines. Draw four horizontal lines to form the base of your table legs. Now you have a house drawn in one-point perspective. You can ink the lines that you want to keep and erase the rest. Next week we will discuss two-point perspective, which has a much wider range of uses for comic artists. Moving on to the news, and what can I say? The Penny Arcade Sells Out Kickstarter has 52 hours left to run at the time of recording, but it is nearing double the amount that they asked for, meaning many of the interesting stretch goals they discussed will actually be taking place. I have to admit I never doubted Penny Arcade of all people would manage to reach their original goal, but the level of enthusiasm for seeing all the adverts disappear from the front page of the site is simply staggering. But let's look at how many people have actually backed this Kickstarter campaign. Penny Arcade receives 75,000 visits per week according to Quantcast, but their Kickstarter has only 7,700 backers. That's 10% of their weekly readership or 1% of their average monthly readership, ponying up some cash. Small webcomic creators should take note of these figures rather than looking at the total amount of cash that Penny Arcade has raised with their venture. Because when you're considering doing a campaign like this yourself, that's a good indicator of the maximum percentage of readers you can expect to actually help you out. Moving on to comic reviews, we're going to have a look at 4 weeks worth of 2000 AD this week. Starting with prog 1793, we find Dredd trapped inside Sue Perkins' block, a megacity skyscraper that has gone rogue in the aftermath of the Day of Chaos and is hoarding supplies that are badly needed by the city. I'm a little ambivalent about which side wins in this one, because while I can understand that the judges of Megacity 1 need to keep supplies in order to keep the starving masses alive, the people in Sue Perkins' block have no guarantees that if they give up the supplies they have stockpiled, their own people will get enough to eat and drink for them to all survive. The greater good is at stake, but these people are being asked to risk death to help total strangers, so it's no wonder they're putting up a fight. But that's 2000 AD all over, and Dredd in particular. It's never about easy solutions to simple problems, it's about the struggle to survive in hell on earth, and here writer Michael Carroll is providing us with an amazing script full of believable characters. Artist PJ Holden is on top form, delivering excellent visuals that have a real sense of depth to them, which I adore. It's just a shame that the story ends so quickly in Prog 1796. Everything was running along smoothly for weeks and I was loving every minute of it. But then the finale just jumped out on me from nowhere. I had no idea that it was going to end so soon, and aside from the shock value of, oh, it's done, I actually felt cheated. The ending should have taken another 2 weeks, but as it stands, everything winds up in 5 pages. And also, why does Dredd's hand seem to heal so miraculously? It takes about 5 minutes of comic time for his hand to go from bullet wound to fixed. So the ending really feels tacked on, and as a result, the entire story feels like a bit of a disappointment. In other stories, Ichabod Azrael continues apace, and I continue to not see the point of the story. Maybe I missed something important in a previous storyline, but right now, all that seems to be happening is Ichabod, who is reincarnated in another place and time every time he's killed, keeps getting killed by a guy who is hunting him across time. There's an apocalypse brewing, but to be brutally honest, I just don't care. The first time Ichabod turned up in 2000 AD, he was a heartless killer, so I had no reason to like him, and nothing I've seen since has made me care about him at all. It's decent writing and the art is good, but there's nothing here to grab me. What has grabbed me, however, is the return of Lenny Zero. Former 2000 AD's editor Andy Diggle is back at the helm of a rather nice gangster drama set in Megacity 1, with former undercover judge Lenny Zero finding himself knee-deep in android gangsters. It's good art from Ben Wilshire, who on first glance I thought was Henry Flint, and excellent dialogue from Diggle. It's definitely a story to watch, and it doesn't disappoint as we move into Prog 1794. Here the plot thickens and the revenge subtext comes right to the foreground. I won't give too many details away, but suffice to say, this Judge Dredd and historical high fantasy drama are killer and worth the cover price on their own. So the 2 lesser strips, Ichabod Azrael and yet another outing for the Red Seas, can be carried along without really putting a damper on proceedings. So what's this Aquila story? I started reading it thinking it was going to be Chilean in Roman times, but it's actually quite different. There's a guy with no soul who can't die and he keeps regenerating himself Wolverine style, and he's on the side of the Iceni, an ancient British tribe who are suffering under Roman occupation. Queen Boadicea has called on Aquila to help destroy Londinium and drive the Romans out, but the Romans have a soulless man of their own who goes by the not-so-inconspicuous name of the Spartan. At first it seemed like this was going to play out as a battle of the Supermen while the Iceni fought the Romans, but now I'm starting to think that it's going to play out as a slug match between Aquila and the Spartan, which will end with them either teaming up or becoming one another's immortal nemesis. Either way, it's an impressive story with some wonderful nods to actual history, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes next time. Speaking of next time, that's all we have time for today. We'll be back next week with more reviews of independent comics, so if you have some independent comics that you'd like us to review, do drop us a line. Either leave us a comment under this video in the comment section below, or email us at zoe@zoerobinson.com and I'll get back to you. Do remember to click the like button, share this video with your friends so that they can get some comic information too, and subscribe for future videos. But until next time, I've been Zoe Kirk-Robinson, you've been watching Comic Fridays, and I'll see you later.